You're listening to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, Accelerated Edition number 14. Today, I speak with former Air Force pilot, mechanical engineer, and founder of Ellies Way, Todd Nigro, about Ellies Way and support for grief. Welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast, Accelerated Edition, where we gain inspiration and motivation from others who share their stories of renewing hope and discovering purpose in any circumstance. I am Christina Reisinger, and today you will be encouraged by another tremendously inspirational topic that will embolden you to release your fear, begin taking small steps forward, and move into your God-given purpose to live and serve in this life. Join me for today's story. Hey, Todd, and welcome to the Faith Breathed Hope podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. So Todd and I have been kind of talking back and forth and collaborating over the last year. He has a fantastic story, tragic story, but fantastic in a way that he is now helping others to find their own healing and giving support through their own grief. Todd, would you please tell us about your story?
Well, my story, like everyone's, is unique. I kind of just a quick kind of rundown on my life before losing our daughter, which was probably the biggest marker in my life, the biggest change, and drove me to some dramatic changes in my life. So, but basically, my childhood was one where my parents divorced when we were young. I kind of grew up very poor, and kind of my mode in life was trying to kind of make the world my oyster. I figured if I was going to get anywhere in life, I had to do it myself and change my, just change a lot that I had up to that point. So what I wound up doing was excelling in school. I knew I had to get a scholarship to pay for that. And then I wound up watching Top Gun when that came out and was fascinated with flying. And so I got out of college and wound up joining the Air Force and flew fighters for about 10 years or so. And basically what was happening was everything was kind of working out for me. I had found my beautiful wife, Kristen, and we had 3 great kids. And so I was just, kind of living the American dream, if you will. And what I didn't realize was that, I wasn't in as much control as I perhaps thought that I was. And so that's kind of the version of my life before Ellie died. So back in 2012, it was a Friday morning, and we were homeschooling the kids, and I came home from work for lunch, like I did a lot of times. And Ellie was sitting at the table doing her work, and I greeted her as usual, and she thanked me for the little note that I had written her that morning, and showed me where she was hiding them all, and it was just a normal, typical interaction with Ellie. Always awesome. She was a younger daughter. My two sons were 4 or 5 years older than her, and so she was kind of the trailing daughter that we always wanted, and Daddy's little girl, and she was still at that age where she loved to see me and greet me and hug me and all that. So anyway, so that was kind of the scene, and I went up to do some work in my office, and Ellie went upstairs, and unbeknownst to me, one of my sons was shooting a pellet gun out of a window earlier in the day at some squirrels, which we obviously didn't approve of that, but he was doing that, and he left it next to the window hot, and Ellie walked into the room, and my other son, who didn't know the gun was loaded and ready to go, knew better, but he pointed it at her and accidentally shot her. And so I happened to be home, and Ellie came running out of the room where all that happened, and I scooped her up. I took her downstairs, called 911, and I didn't really know it was as serious as it was. And anyway, she wound up passing away on her kitchen floor. We found out later the pellet had hit her in the chest. And anyway, needless to say, even just sharing the story now, it's been, I guess, 8.5 years now. And I don't share those details very often anymore. And, so it's still hard for me to think about it. But anyway, so we got through the funeral and all that. And things were just really hard. It was a complicated tragedy, and my sons were involved in different ways. I had a lot of guilt because I, the father figure. I taught the kids what to do, but obviously they didn't do what they needed to do with gun safety, and so I struggle and still kind of struggle with some guilt in that regard. I'm the one that was in charge, and things didn't work out, and so that was a tough part of it. But it was just really difficult. I got to admit, I didn't know how we were going to survive. I mean, it was just terrible. Um, well, a few days later, our local newspaper came out with an article, and it really just did, didn't paint our family in a good light. And it had a bunch of facts that weren't, it kind of stretched the truth, if you will, and made things look as bad as they could. And I was already feeling guilty as it was. And I don't know, I just couldn't process that. It was too much for me. And this whole time, keep in mind, my faith, I didn't really have a faith. My whole history of Christianity and going to church was going with my wife, Kristen, and with the kids. We'd go to church kind of irregularly, but we'd still go. And I went to support her and the kids. But I didn't really understand. And I was curious, but I just never was around that in my childhood, and just never had anybody able to explain to me how and why I needed Jesus, and to the way that I could understand. So anyway, what had basically happened in those 4 days after Ellie died, I had just been torn down and destroyed. Basically, my whole existence. In my mind, I didn't know how to go on. I didn't want to be in control of anything anymore, and I just needed something else. And I think in that reflection and that despair, I remembered times with my daughter, who was a Christian, praying with me. She would pray up, and when we were putting her to bed, hey, Daddy, let's pray, and she'd pray, and I'd listen to her, and it was always just so cute and warm, and and so she was just one of many examples of people that had something I wanted, and so I basically accepted Christ on a bathroom floor, kind of just all on my own, and I called my pastor and some other friends and shared what I'd done, and it was amazing from that moment forward. Just that guilt and that kind of shame, and just that feeling of not knowing how to live, all that went away. And I've really just been blessed ever since, and waking up and wondering what God has in store for me today, and knowing that Ellie's in heaven, and knowing that I can see her again, and that I can serve others in this world until that happens. It's just been a real adventure, and a lot of really good things have happened since Ellie died, and I certainly wish she didn't, but I'm very thankful for all of the things that God has done in my life since that time. So and to kind of finish kind of the loop a little bit, back to my not knowing how our family would survive in the aftermath of our accident. We did, and we did in a beautiful way. Our kids, my two boys are now, one's out of college and working, and the other one's still in college, and they had a great childhood. And one story that always touches me and still kind of chokes me up a little bit is one day my son was, he had a lot of friends. He was very very outgoing, and one of his friends, his parents were having some problems, and they had a divorce, and they were having that kind of typical teenager with divorced parents and lots of just kind of issues around that. And he would talk to my son about his problems all the time, and I just found it amazing how he was supporting other kids and other teenagers through their struggles and problems. And he told me that still, I can't believe he can say this, but he felt he had a great child. He told me that, and I just don't understand how you could think that, when in some ways, when you've been through what we've been through. But it's also, I think, a testament to what God can do with a family that needed him so much. And so anyway, so I just share that to say we've come through this in an amazing way that I never would have dreamed possible. And I think actually it's a miracle. So anyway,
Yeah, That's a lot. So many things are going through my mind as you're speaking, and one of the first things that I would say is that I know the story. I've heard it, I've read it, we've talked, um, and it's still as a mom. Uh, makes my heart heavy to hear, and like just had how you say you didn't know how you were gonna get through that. And even as a mom who has lost a child and works with other people like that, I still get sad. And so I knew that people who are listening today and all the people in your community, still have a swelling of love and even sadness probably for you and your story. So I really appreciate you sharing that with my audience. And you said that you felt like you didn't know how you were going to survive. I can only imagine that there are so many people out there, and uh, you know this because you have a huge community of these people, but they feel like they don't know how they're going to survive. Each of us goes through very unique things, very unique stories, and we see life so differently. So, what is very difficult for one person may not be as difficult for another, and we certainly try not to compare with grief and loss. And, but I have seen a lot of people do that. So I really appreciate your sharing of this hope, the story of being able to be coming to God from something that was so tragic. Um, Can you speak to, because I know, first of all, before we go into talking about Ellie's Way, I want you to talk about how, at least as for me, I hear a lot of people say that they get angry at God, like when things like this happen. Um, and it doesn't have to be something that was an incident like that, but just even the loss of someone they love so deeply. They really get angry at God. They're so hurt. They're so lost. How can you let this happen to me? How can you do this to me? Um, what would your response to that person be today, since you have been brought into Christianity and you love God and you love Jesus and you know he is a savior and he is the Lord of joy and in life, not just death and everything. So what would you say to those people?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. I mean, I think, Jesus didn't have an easy time, number one. And I don't think, I think in some ways, when bad things don't happen to us, we kind of get used to that. And we, maybe think that that's how it's always going to be. But I don't think, our life is for anybody is going to be easy. We're all going to lose our loved ones. We're all going to have struggles. We're going to get hurt. Our loved ones are going to get hurt. People are going to die, etc. And so that's part of life. And for me, I didn't know that. I hadn't experienced any of that. So when it happened to me, I was just overwhelmed and didn't understand. But I also think in some ways, me finding my faith through it and finding comfort in my faith was very helpful to me. And I imagine it might be different for somebody who's a longtime Christian that now generally things went pretty well and now they've lost someone that they love. They could feel, well, why, and why now, and this isn't fair, and not understand. And so that's, I think, makes a lot of sense. But I also think, for me, I just want to let go and let God be God, and know that I don't understand His ways, and I don't understand why, and I never will, and that's okay. And the one way that helps me, I like a lot of analogies. So, I look back to when my kids were born, and to me, those were amazing. That was an amazing moment. Probably the few amazing moments in my life was just seeing this child for the first time and looking in their eyes, and it's a beautiful thing. And if you kind of put yourself, like we're the children, like in that scenario, that my child, my baby, didn't know anything about the world, didn't know anything about anything. He was just resting in our arms, with all of its needs we were going to meet, it didn't even know what it needed. It didn't understand anything. What was involved in how I was going to support the kid. It didn't understand any of that. So I just view kind of our relationship with God in a similar way. Where we're that baby in God's arms, and there's no way we can understand what's going on in God's mind, if you will. So anyway, so that helps me with the why. That's
Yeah.
kind of how I view that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, actually. I had to come to terms too with being able to say it's okay if I never receive an explanation, if I never understand why. Just knowing that I'm not the one ultimately that is in control, and that God can use everything for His good. And He truly does give us that peace that surpasses all understanding, because we cannot do this uh, on our own. From the things that we know of the world, it's too heavy. But He does, and He can, and He will give us that peace to be able to walk forward. Part of your walking forward was creating a community on Facebook called Ellies Way. And I have been a part of this community for, I think it's been at least almost a year, maybe more now. And there are so many people in there that love you and respect you and appreciate you for what you have created. And so I would like for you just to talk about what Ellie's Way is, who is it for? Obviously, it is about grief, but can you go into some detail about that?
Sure. Yeah, Ellie's Way was formed in the kind of long nights. As you can imagine, I didn't. One of my responses to grief was just I had a very active mind. I was losing a lot of weight. I couldn't sleep, and so I was just, I guess, over burning calories and energy, and it was kind of a crazy time. But then I was turning into kind of a crazy Todd, if you will. Where just everything was just, and I don't know. I just needed to do something. So anyway, in the middle of the night, I found comfort in reading the Bible, and I would pray, and then I wanted kind of, I don't know, kind of came onto my heart that I wanted to do something. And one of the inspirations was a lady in our town. Maybe about 30 days or so after Ellie died, we got a doorbell rang, and there was a package on the front step. And we were having a especially good day. Kristen and I were just sitting at the kitchen table, and we got the package. We opened it up, and it was a care package for us, and had some embroidered Ellie's name on a blanket, and some books and devotionals, and just things to provide comfort to us. And I was blown away, because we needed that in that moment. And my response to it was, I need, who sent this to me? And so I found their number and in the paperwork and that she'd given us, and I called her, and I just wanted to thank her, told her how much it meant to us, and wanted to learn why she had done this, because it was an amazing thing. And her brother was murdered maybe a year before, and she was trying to find a way to give back and to serve others, with the experience that she had. And so that whole thing was probably kind of the turning point for me, that, like, I want to do this too. And so anyway, so in those nights, it was, I'd write notes and write down things that, what could we do? But my initial plan was I wanted to help communities help the grieving a little bit better, be more organized around tragic situations, because in most cases, communities aren't ready for tragic loss of a child or any other tragic loss. It's just not normal in most people's experience. So they don't know what to do or how to do it. So kind of went down that road for a while, and then I realized it was kind of like swimming upstream a little bit, trying to convince or to educate people that aren't grieving about that situation. It was almost, people don't generally want to go there unless they have to, and I don't mean that in any negative way. I mean, I was like that. I hadn't been to a funeral my whole life because I didn't know, nobody ever kind of brought me along, and I was afraid of the whole scene, and I didn't want to I just was afraid of it. I think, I just kind of avoided it, and I think a lot of people do that. So
Yeah.
so what I realized was, okay, and this sort of just wasn't like an overnight thing, but over time I realized, look, why not organize the grieving to help the grieving? We're all going to be there at some point. There's lots of people who have lost loved ones, and pretty much most of them, would be glad to help somebody else along the way. And it's also, I think, a real healing thing for all the grieving people to have a way to help somebody else that's grieving too. So that's where the Ellies Way group on Facebook kind of started, was with that kind of mindset. And I know there's a lot of Facebook support groups out there, and I was a part, and still am a part of a lot of them. But like anything, you want to, what's going to be the way, something we're going to do different. And what I wanted to do was be a little more interactive and have a little more structure in the group. So we, instead of just, share your story, that's it, and just post, and everybody just kind of does the same thing. What I found was that I think people would lose your post. You might, in a large group, you share something, and then 30 minutes later you couldn't find it anymore because it was down so far in the feed and so on. So anyway, so what I wound up doing was I came up with a bunch of questions to share, and just different contests, caption contests and poetry contests, photo contests, and events that we would do every once in a while where people could get together and share and things like that. And so I'm always looking for ways to engage our group and to help them more. And that's part of the enjoyment I get out of doing this for so long, is, how can we do this better? And so I'm always looking for ideas in that regard. But what touches me more than anything is just our group's grown to 16,000 plus people. And it's a peer-to-peer group now. I'm not in there all the time. In fact, I probably don't spend that much time in the group, besides just looking for ways to make it better, and to come up with better programs, and try and encourage our leaders and volunteers and things like that we have. But the group kind of takes care of itself. It runs on its own, and I have so many volunteers to thank for that, and so many people that have just kind of come back to want to serve others in the group, and that's what makes it what it is. And I just feel like without everybody there to support that idea, I couldn't have done this. And I really too that I think God had a hand in all this as well, to keep the drama down, and to keep the love up, and encouragement up there.
Mm-hmm. And so many people feel, I guess I would have to use the word safe even to share there, because they know that it's full of a community full of people who can sympathize, can empathize. I don't want to say that they understand, because we all walk a separate journey, but you're able to say, hey, I can walk beside you because I get that pain. I get that suffering, and my heart goes out to you. So I love that. And I also love things that you do, like post stories, and there I see you always, periodically you'll have stories of Ellie and her photographs and different things like that. And you've done other things. You guys have a cruise, right? You did that once a year.
Sorry,
Cruise.
Yes, we've done a couple getaways. We did our first getaway. We went to Sedona, Arizona, a couple years ago, and had maybe 45 people or so get together, and that was a great time, and made lots of good friends there. And then we looking to change things up, so we went on a cruise this past spring, and we had a lot of the people that went to Sedona came along on that, and we met some new people came as well, and that was really, it was just a good time to vacation with new friends, and so we look forward to, hopefully, these pandemic stuff will go away here in another, whenever it decides to, but we'll get back and get our getaways going again when it's safe to do so. But really enjoyed getting to meet everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really neat. There's something comforting in being able to share experiences with people who have had shared experiences, if that makes sense. So, when, for instance, when I am speaking to another woman who has lost a child, there is no comfort in knowing that someone else has gone through so much pain, but there is comfort in knowing that you can sit and share understanding in a way, and be able to move forward and know that there is life. You can experience joy. And one of the things that I typically say quite a bit is that when we serve one another, we continue to help ourselves heal. So I love that you're doing this and have this community. What does the future of Ellie's Way look like to you? I know you said that you're continuing to try to come up with ideas and bring people in to, be leaders and support. What does it look like? Do you have a bigger vision, or is it just kind of
Yeah,
a work in progress? I mean,
yeah, yeah. It's a work in progress. I mean, one thing it's interesting. When I'm kind of a type A personality, so I like to get things done, and want it yesterday, that kind of stuff, and that's how I treat myself. But I think over time I've softened, and I've learned that everything's going to be kind of what it is, and it's okay, and to be thankful for what I have, what I have, and what Ellie's Way is all about now. And so I'm comfortable with that, and grateful for everything, and so having a big vision. I mean, yeah, I think it'd be great to have more members as needed to help people as they need to be helped. So, part of it is just getting the word out to newly bereaved people. For example, we don't do much of a reach out to those people as well as maybe we could. And part of my problem is my time. I work full time doing something completely unrelated to Ellie's Way, and my wife that I like to spend time with, and we still want to visit the boys, and maybe one day the grandkids will show up and all that kind of stuff. So all that's important to me, and so managing and balancing all of this is a challenge. But at the same time, I've sort of learned to not worry about it too much, and when I have the time and can sneak away from all the other things I've got to do, I can do Ellie's Way stuff, which is always a blessing, and I enjoy that. So what I guess I would hope one day, perhaps if it's in God's plan, is just, can we maybe bring people into our group that want to step up a little more and take on different pieces, like maybe the reaching out to newly bereaved is something we could do. I've thought about people in different countries grieve, obviously, so could a Spanish group be created that supports in a similar way and be beneficial to the Spanish speaking people of the world, and obviously a bunch of other languages and places where the same principles and the same strategies and guidelines and all that we've done and has worked with Ellie's Way group. Could that work in other ways like that? So there's plenty of what I've learned too is there's no shortage of suffering and grief in the world, and never will be, and there's probably is a shortage of support and encouragement and love for them. And so me filling that gap is what Ellie's Way hopefully can do in the future.
Yeah, and you've already started some chapters, right? You have different chapters in different states in the United States.
Yeah, we do. I think I might have tried that a little bit early. It's easy to start a chapter somewhere. The hard part, and what I'm learning too, is just, obviously I can't do all of them. So we need somebody who, and generally somebody would volunteer for, starting the, whatever chapter in whatever state. But it's really hard, and even, I think we lucked out when we did all this a few years ago. I think it was easier to get traction and get, for example, Facebook, shows people whatever it wants to show on their feed, and they have different algorithms that decide that. And I know, for example, now, like, I might be involved in or have joined 100 different Facebook groups, but if you don't interact with a group, you don't ever see it again. So you actually have to go there and probably interact with things there, and then maybe some things will show up in your feed. And it's Facebook trying to, they've only got a limited amount of stuff they can show you, so they're trying to optimize that for what you want. But what I've kind of learned is it's pretty hard to start a new group and get it going, get people to go back to it and engage, and so that's been a little bit hard. So I wouldn't say I've given up on that idea, but I just, it's harder than it sounds to, to replicate what we've already done in the big group. And so I think that's where a lot of the good is going on, and that's where engagement's all happening, and it's self-sustaining there. So that's where my energies kind of focus is more right there now.
All right. And then you do have an app, right? You still have your app?
Yes, we do. We have an app that you can download from the App Store, the Android, and Amazon. And basically, you can get all the resources that we have on our website there. Links to the group, things like that. I've got to do a little bit better with updating new content on my update page, but it's like anything, like a blog or podcast. You gotta keep up with it to keep the content fresh. So that's always a challenge for me.
Absolutely, when we're doing so many different things. So is there anything else that you want to share with the audience right now? Any type of encouragement that you want to give if somebody is, obviously going through grief, whether it would be newly bereaved or they've been going through it for 10 plus years already. And, we could all deal with some encouragement. So.
Yeah. Well, I think I have some maybe different ideas than I hear most of the time, but I feel like what happens to us, how you look at that and how you respond to it is the challenge, and I think that actually the worst that happens to us, or the bigger your grief, the bigger your loss, the more impact you can have on others. And your story can be impactful to many more people if you look at it like that. And so I share that to just say, that's why I like you said earlier, I don't think comparing any loss, is helpful to anybody, because it's your story is your story, my story is my story. And that as an example of this concept, a friend of mine shared a story about a parental bereavement group. And they had a little exercise where they said, look, if you could take all of your grief and put it in a bag and put it in the middle of the room, and they have all the parents that lost their child, put their grief in a bag and put it all in the big pile of grief in the middle of the room. And then they said, well, look, if you like, you can go and pick any bag in the middle of the room that you want. And everybody went and picked their own bag back. Okay. And I think it's a pretty neat illustration that, in a way, if you accept your grief, you accept who you are and your path as your path, no matter where it goes or how deep the valley. It's still, that's your life, and that's who you are. And if you really think about it, you wouldn't want to pick somebody else's, because you wouldn't be, I lost my daughter Ellie, and that's part of my story, and I actually want it to be, and so even if I have all the pain that's involved in my story, that's still okay, and so anyway, so I share all that to say that our stories can be blessings if we try to look at them like that, and want to let God use us to make it that way, so anyway, so that's kind of my way of maybe looking at it different than I've heard most people talk about. So
yeah, I love that. And you pick up your own bag. I mean, we grieve because we love, and if we get rid of that bag, we're getting rid of the grief, but we're also getting rid of the love. And nobody would want to get rid of the love. I mean, I have been asked, would I do it again? Our daughter was sick, and we chose to have her. She was sick in utero. And for those of you who don't know my story, who are listening, and my husband and I made the choice to go ahead and have her and go through the pregnancy. And then she only lived 10 and a half months. And if someone asks me if I would do it again, because there was so much pain, there was so much stress, there was so much fear, eventually there was anger and just all the things, I would tell you 100% yes, because if I chose not to do it again, then I don't have Isabella. Any other decision would leave me without Isabella, and my life would not be whole without Isabella. So it's that piece of love that I choose to keep. And so I love that exercise that you're talking about. Well, Todd, can you please tell the audience where they can find you, where they can get, involved with Ellie's Way?
Sure. There's a couple places. The easiest one, the shortest way is to go to www.elliesway.org, O-R-G, and that's spelled Elliesway. You can also just search for Ellies Way, probably in Google, and I'm sure you can find us that way. And then if you get to the website, just look for our Facebook group, and that's where I think we're providing probably the most support and encouragement and help in that peer-to-peer group on Facebook. So if you're interested in something like that, the group is you can join. There's a few questions, so make sure you answer those. So we kind of can make sure that we want to let people with lots of loved ones in and not anybody else as best we can. But once you get in, you don't have to do anything. You can take a look, see if it's something that you want to be a part of, and just read things as you choose to. You can click on likes and reacts to things and maybe comment on some things when you're comfortable. And then when you're ready, feel free to share your story in a picture. And I think you'll be amazed at how much love and support that you're going to get through that. And then, you can always share how you're feeling, share your questions. You can encourage others whenever you want. And it's kind of a, one thing I've learned through all this, there was one lady one time in the group posted about how she had lost her son, and I don't have all the details exactly right, but back in 1972, for example, on a farm. And now she's in the group and she's active and helping others. And I just remember thinking that was, how many years ago, you know what I mean? And part of it hit me that, yeah, I'm going to be grieving the loss of Ellie when I'm 82 years old and until the day I die probably. And then, then I'll get to see her again. But I guess, it didn't hit me that was really going to be the reality of it. But at the same time, I'm seeing somebody who's been grieving the loss of their child for so long, and not necessarily in a bad way or anything else, but now she's found an outlet that didn't exist, long time ago. Mm-hmm. And so she's serving and giving back and using her grief to help others now. And mm-hmm. I thought that was kind of amazing. So it's just a place where you can engage as much or as little as you want, probably get somebody to respond to you 24/7. Every day of the year, there's so many people there that are going to be helpful. So I'd encourage you, if that sounds attractive, to check it out.
Absolutely. And, we know that sharing our stories, it makes us vulnerable, but it also heals us, but it also gives us that opportunity, like you already said, to encourage others to share their stories and find some type of release and to be able to be of service to other people as well. So so check out Ellie's Way. Also, you can look for the app, which is a really, really well done app. I have been on it. And if you are looking to, hopefully I can say this and this is okay, but if you are looking to maybe help in any way, maybe work in leadership or whatever, can they reach out to you, Todd, and maybe help you with going out off of different ideas to kind of help other people?
Yeah, I'm 100%. So I tend to, if anybody has an idea, I want to support that and want to encourage someone to find their way and their gift, in ways to serve others. And so, so you can definitely contact me, and I'd love to talk about any of those kinds of ideas.
Yeah, awesome, Todd. It was so wonderful having you here on Faith Breathed Hope, and I personally have really appreciated your community as well. So
thank you, and God bless you. I appreciate you too.
Yeah, God bless you. And everybody continue to be blessed and bless others. And we will see you next week. And I want to thank you for joining us on Faith Breathed Hope, where you gain inspiration and motivation to renew hope and discover purpose in any circumstance. Please like and share this podcast and give us a review on iTunes. Be blessed.